Welcome to Home's Room. Just like homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin.
Welcome back. I got a guest again here today. Super excited. I don't get to interview a ton of guys, and I don't know what it is about with this podcast. And guys are always like, "Yeah, I'll do it," and then last second back out. Women have more balls, maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. But today I have an entrepreneur, former service member, an engineer, a dad, a guest here today. What's up, Jimmy?
Hey,
How are
man.
you?
It isn't that women have more balls. It's just that, my wife is holding on to mine.
Fair. So you actually have a really long list of things to put in for an intro. So I hope I hit enough of the main bullet points. But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit what do you do? What's going on? Like I said, you're an engineer.
Yeah.
So, that's
Yeah, I mean, there's a really long list of life that I've lived. Uh, and it's I just always want to go on an adventure, and I always want to experience something that I haven't. And so you kind of start putting stuff into a list of intro, and you're like, wow, that's, when did I find the time? Um, but I'd like to, add to that, a friend, and just someone, who wants to be a good person. That's just in the end of the day, that's what I'm trying to do. Um, and just go to sleep at night with no weight on my shoulders. Uh,
yeah. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing about it is being able to go to sleep. I used to do this exercise where I'd stare at the bathroom counter for 15, 20 seconds and then look myself dead in the eyes. And if I couldn't handle that, or if I had an immediate thought that I recoiled to, then I was like, damn, I need to fix that thing. So,
hmm.
being at peace and being an honorable man is the highest thing up on my list, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I make mistakes, and I do things that hurt people, not intentionally. I mean, life happens, but in the end of the day, I try, and I
Yeah.
can live with that. And so that's just kind of where I want to be. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so, primarily right now, I am an engineer. I graduated from UMKC back in 2016, and started working for a company called HNTB. They're a large they're a large engineering and architectural firm. Their architectural firm focuses on sports stadiums. Uh, One of their recent things that they've done is the Las Vegas Raiders stadium.
Oh yeah.
Our company designed and built that from the ground up, and I'm fairly certain someone in my office put a Chiefs flag hidden in one of their walls somewhere, uh, just to rub it in their face that Mahomes has home field advantage there.
I like it. I like it.
Um, but I focused on water resources. I used to joke when people ask what do you actually do, and I used to say I'm the modern day Moses. Uh, I would control where water flows outside of a house. So water line design, sewer, like both sanitary and storm, overland flow storm stuff, riverbank stabilizations, levees. I've done just tons of different things that all have to do with us just managing where water flows. Um, and it kind of prepared me for my current job. While doing that, I was also working for another civil engineer part-time as a structural engineer doing um, structural reviews of basements. And so someone is selling their house and they've got some cracks in their foundation. They call me. I tell them what to do. I
Yeah.
don't do the work. I get to keep my hands
Yeah.
clean. Um, but so he was teaching me that, and then I was really doing a lot with understanding water and how it affects everything. And it turns out that everything that happens to your house after it's been built 5 or 10 years, all your problems with your foundation are because of water, either too much or too little. And understanding how that
Yeah.
works, it just really has given me a unique perspective that not a lot of people get to see.
Yeah, damn. Next time I buy a house, I'm gonna have to be like, "Yo, do you want to come take a look at this to make sure?" Because we definitely have, like, we had a huge deck that covered like maybe a quarter of our pretty good sized
Yeah.
backyard. So we took up the deck, and under the deck was a patio is definitely
Yep.
cracked like crazy,
Yep.
and there's a giant tree in the backyard, so it's like, oh, that's probably what happened. And then somebody was like, honestly, all the houses that were built in this area, they didn't compact the soil well
That.
enough, so chances are it's probably from water more than it is the
Yeah.
tree, and the tree just happened to also do some damage. And I was like, cool, things I wish I had known 10 years
Well, I will
ago.
say that I would never buy a house with a willow tree that is within 150 feet of it.
Oh yeah.
They are so destructive. They will rip a hole through a concrete wall, their roots.
Damn it, they're so
They
beautiful too. That's
are.
annoying.
They are so beautiful. Put it by your pond, on the
Yeah,
opposite
there you
end of
go.
your property if you're lucky enough to get that.
There's one of those moments. Just like try and tag in that Mahomes. Throw the ball as far as you can. That's how far away the tree should be,
I
most
can't
likely.
throw that far.
Yeah. So like I said, you're an entrepreneur, and that's kind of why you're here. This show is kind of built around people that are forging their own path or doing things their own way, and not taking the lemons or not taking the knocks that life has given them, and they stay true to who they are, what they want, or they just find themselves unable to follow a different path but the one set in front of them, and shit just
Yeah.
happens, and it's like, dang, I didn't intend to start this thing, but here it is. So tell us about Cobb Engineering Solutions. What is it? What do you do? How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, so I started it March. I got my LLC, I think March of 2023, and it sat there for a few months, and I was, I just swooped up all of the social media, like Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah.
got a website, just tried to collect everything I could to just keep my domain. And it just sat there, not really going anywhere. And my wife just said to me one evening, she goes, "You gonna do anything with this, or you just like what's your plan?" And I said, "I don't really have one." And she goes, "Well, how are you gonna have this business if you don't do anything with it?" And so that's when I said, "All right, well, I need to figure out what I want this business to be." And having worked with another civil engineer doing structural inspections for a long time, I had an idea of what I wanted it to be. Um, and you think, okay, well, my client is a buyer who's buying a home. Yes and no. My client is not the buyer. They're the one that pays me for that inspection. My client is the realtor that is going to sell 12 houses, and I might be able to get 6 inspections a year out of that person, not the one inspection every 10 years from the buyer. So that realtor also has a network of 1,000 other realtors, and they routinely post things like, anybody have a structural engineer? And the first one to speak up and put in your information is going to be who's getting the call. So I started really focusing on getting my name out there. I didn't want to pay for Google for clicks. That I don't feel I don't see the evidence that really supports that working for this kind of business.
Yeah.
Um, I also had like oh, what is that site called? It's the biz or the builder site where it they get reviews, they send you leads.
Oh yeah.
They, there's a lot of sites like that, but there's one that's kind of like the Better Business Bureau. It's people go to and they say I'm looking for something. They wanted to charge me like $50 a lead that wasn't necessarily going to be, an inspection. Well, that's 15% of my overall, and it's double my total overhead per inspection prior to that. So that doesn't make sense to me to do that.
Yeah.
So I started doing, the groundwork, and after I got off my normal 9 to 5, I had a box of 1,000 business cards, and I had a map of all the realtor brokerages and offices in the KC metro area. And every day I'd take off at like 4:30, and I'd try and hit one or two of them before 5:30. They always close at 5, but there's usually somebody still there at 5:30 that I can talk to. And I started figuring things out. I being an engineer and just my general uh, behavior, I don't let an obstacle stop me. I try to find a way around that obstacle. And
Yeah.
when I started doing this, I figured out that the biggest obstacle I had was the front desk lady at the realtor office. They
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
they are the gatekeepers, man. You've gotta either buy her a steak when you walk in, or sneak in under the counter so she doesn't see you. I mean, they are
Yeah.
brutal. Uh,
We're anti gatekeeper here. Like that's just been a thing, like a long standing, like no gatekeepers. So if you gotta, like if you gotta, you know, bribe the troll to get, to get past the drawbridge, sometimes I guess it has to happen.
yes.
And, it sounds like, you went out and in a true like grassroots build it yourself way,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that makes your story unique. That's what makes your story worth hearing. And I think a lot of times, like, we have another thing here where we like to say we're an imposter syndrome cure. When people come on, they start to realize and hear their own story because you're living it, you're walking it, you did it, and now that's a thing behind you. But when you rehash it and think about it, and you remember what work went into it, what labor went into it, what extra effort went into it, that not a lot of people have the gumption or the drive or the dedication or the accountability to do. That's what this show is like built on. And I think hearing that, like, straight up, anybody out there that's doing anything, it doesn't matter whether it's building a business or, trying to be a better parent, holding yourself accountable, getting off at 4:30 and putting in that extra little bit of
Yeah.
time is gonna pay out, even if it doesn't seem like it right this second. And I think that that's, a huge, feather in a cap to say that that that's what you were doing. That's where it started, was,
Yeah.
you're trying to, pound the pavement, as they say. But instead of trying to put in job applications, you were putting in work for yourself, which is that much more rewarding.
And I was trying to do it a roundabout way. I wasn't trying to ask a realtor to call me out to their next house. I was trying to offer them some value. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so if you give someone value, you're going to be in their mind. If you just show up and you're just kind of in and out and you're asking for something, you're they have no loyalty. I've always felt loyalty is built on value added. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily a full exchange, but you're not going to be loyal to something that has added zero value to your existence. So
Yeah.
when I was reaching out to these realtors, I wasn't reaching out to get them to, hey, I'm an engineer, I can do what you can't. I was reaching out saying, hey, I'm an engineer, I understand this. Let me help you understand it a little bit. And so what I did was I developed um, a 15-minute presentation just teaching basics of what certain cracks or certain things look like that a realtor can spot and say, this is a structural concern. We'll need to call a realtor, or we'll need to call an engineer. And so it's the whole home buying process. You have uh, you find a house you like, you put in an offer, the offer gets accepted, then you have like a 10 to 14 day inspection period window. So that starts like almost immediately after you get that accepted contract. Once the contract's
Hmm.
signed, you're in your period. Well, most people, first thing they want to do is they want to get a whole home inspection. Those are required. That I'm not a required inspection. They'll get the termite inspection. They'll schedule all those people, and then the whole home inspector, they're looking at everything, including structural. Most of them are not engineers, so they're not legally allowed to say this is a problem or this isn't. They can
Interesting.
get their license revoked, and they can get sued for it. So they've got a limit on what they can say. So they'll go through, they'll take pictures, and they'll say there's this crack. It appears to be a settlement crack. Recommend you have a licensed professional engineer review this wall for structural integrity. And that's how they
Yep.
get themselves out of it. Um, it may be a really minor crack that has no impact, but the moment it then goes to underwriting to write the loan, and they're looking at everything. And at underwriting, they're determining based off of the appraisal of the house and what we're paying for it. Is it, are we going to get our money back? Like, because the bank is buying it and then we're paying the bank back.
Hmm.
So the bank's saying, is this an actual reasonable, like, good thing for us? Are we going to make money on this? Or if something happens, are we screwed? And foundation problems can be really, really expensive. So most underwriting will require a structural engineer's inspection. Well, when you get your home inspection on day 4, they get their report done by day 6, gets to underwriting on day 9 and or day 10, and underwriting on day 11 of a 14-day period says you need an engineer. Well, you only have 3 days
Yeah.
left on your inspection period. What are you going to do? Now you've got to find somebody that can get out there right away, and then it's an additional cost. It's not a free inspection. It's an additional cost. So now the whole process is more money out of their pocket, and it's just like kick to the gut, kick to the nuts, kick to the teeth, like just back to back to back. And it's like I thought we were good, like we were happy, no one
Yeah.
had any real issues. Now all of a sudden we're here, and that's the experience a lot of people are getting, and it's a bad home buying experience. So what I did, and I'll still do it. I just I've gotten busy finally, but um, I go to their team meetings where they're all there anyways, and give a 15-minute presentation on these are all the different types of cracks that you're generally going to see. This is what it means when
Hmm.
you're doing your walkthrough of a home that your clients, they fall in love with it. Take a look. If you see these couple of things, here's what it looks like in the drywall. If you see these things, it doesn't mean that you can write a report, but it means that you understand there's something going on. So at that moment, when you're walking through with your client and they're falling in love with this house, you say, here are some different things. I've got a structural engineer that's taught me some stuff about here, some stuff to look for. These are some different things that could be a structural problem and might come out and come up later on in the process. If we put an offer in on this house, I think that our first step should be to go ahead and get a structural engineer in here on day 1 and or day 2, we can schedule all the other ones out normal, but get that structural engineer in first and find out what they say is going to happen and what we think the cost is going to be for any repairs we have. Now they are understanding that when they put this offer in, they have the structural engineer as something they got to pay. You find out whether there is or isn't any problems first thing before all the other stuff is spent.
Yeah.
And you make all these decisions and all this stuff, and it's going in with better expectations of how
Yeah.
things are. Turns into it's the same cost, same inspection, same result, vastly different experience. And so I'm
Yeah.
selling them value in creating a way to make a better experience for their clients.
So that's I like, it's kind of backwards math, and the way that like that approach is, because as somebody who had a like weird home buying experience, and like the realtor that we used, like I would never use them. I shouldn't say that company, but I would never use that, like that
Yeah.
person again. Like I would cross the street to not have to walk past that
Wow.
guy, just because it was like such a weird experience. And like things I wish I like, things I know now that I wish I would have known then, and advice that he gave that wasn't really good advice.
Mm.
You're you're adding value to a company that you're not a part of, and making the home buyer have more power in a situation. And like commissions and all that kind of stuff play a part, I would imagine. But like ultimately, a home buyer knowing fully what they're getting into, and knowing that they have peace of mind on the front end, instead of finding out something and then finding out after spending more money that like maybe it's not as big of a deal, or do we just roll the dice and not spend that money?
Yeah.
And like that's the situation that we were in at the time. And there's so many little things that pop up in a home buying
Yeah.
experience that you wouldn't know unless you've done it before. And that's in itself a whole separate thing. But like I always tell people I've held a million different jobs, and sales was one of my jobs, and I always called myself the anti-salesman. I always tried to, like, I'm not going to say this thing may be the most expensive, and I'm not working on commission, so it doesn't matter to me whether you spend $5 or whether you spend $500. But ultimately, my goal is to keep my doors open and keep you coming back, because the more money that you spend with us, the more job security I have in the long
Yeah.
run. So it doesn't do me any good to make you buy something that's twice as expensive, that's going to not serve the function that you need it to, because it had bells and whistles, and I just want to make you spend as much money. And what that would always do is they instantly have a level of trust built into, this guy is not going to tell me something I don't need, or is not going to just try and, talk me up and sell me up on something that like just has me spend more money. And what that does is they spend the right amount of money.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're doing, is you're not up in the cost and up in the stakes of what this thing says. You're allocating the right level of funds to the right level of expectation. And that's like, I mean, again, as somebody who's bought a house, and I just helped my mom buy her first house, it's like there's a lot of stuff that you just gotta figure
Yeah.
out. And if you don't have somebody there that's like, hey, like, yes, that's a crack, but that crack is because somebody did shitty mud work, not, not like actually a crack. Like if you look, this wall and that wall that are on opposite sides maybe show the same signs of a thing, which tells me maybe there's more to it,
Right.
as opposed to like, I'm looking at this wall and there's like a random stripe down it. Is that stripe actually like a thing? Is the wall bowing out? And it's like, no, they just didn't put like 4 screws down the wall. They just put one at the top and one at the bottom, and like hoped for the
Yeah.
best,
Yeah.
and those are the things that you get into. And like that's what we call our house a home built house, because I think the guy did a ton of repairs, and we find stuff all the time that's like, why is that like that? And you're selling the peace of mind, man,
Yeah.
that like this thing is not that big of a deal. You guys can fix it. It might cost you $500 as opposed to
Yeah.
$5,000. And that's good. I love that.
I separate myself because part of the peace of mind is figuring out where's this person's bias, and
Mm,
what is this person's angle. Um, when a company comes in with a foundation company, those salesmen are on commission. They're trying to sell
mm-hmm.
everything. And they get trained by their own company for like 4 to 6 days, and then they're out selling and telling people what's going on with their foundations. It
Mm-hmm.
is scary. I actually just left this evening, left an inspection, and they had 4 companies come out, and every single company told them something was different was going on, and they ranged from $5,000 to $50,000 in repair costs. Um, they were saying, oh, there's a crack here. That means your wall's bowing in, so we need to put 4 braces on this wall. That's going to be $3,000 for that right there. And you put a level on that wall, it's perfectly straight. That crack that
Mm-hmm.
they saw, it was not perfectly straight up and down, which would tell me it's settlement. It was like at an angle a little bit. And so they said that's an angle crack, so your wall's pushing in. That's not what's going on. And they don't know that. And typical homeowner's not going to know that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't do the work. I don't have anything to sell there. And I've gotten into
Yeah.
several discussions, and I've upset a few of my clients, um, because they ask me, who do I trust? Who do I want? Who would I have do my house?
Yeah.
And uh, I stand firm on this. I won't tell them who to go to.
Yeah.
I will not give a recommendation. And the reason for that is, uh, if I don't give a recommendation, then I can't be getting kickbacks. I can't be getting
Yeah.
any kind of value from these companies. So that's another degree of separation to let you know, if I'm saying you've got to do $30,000 of work, it's because it needs it. Uh, I don't get anything out of this. I'd prefer to tell everybody their house is perfect, but
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I think that not only is that smart, I'm kind of the same way where like I don't like giving recommendations on things because in the end, like it's, I mean, the reason that we know each other in that world, it's always so hard for me to give specific advice to an athlete because I know what I would do, but you and I are so like drastically
Yeah,
different that I can tell you what like you might try, but I wouldn't ever give you like solid 100% do this thing because at the end of the day, like it's got to be your choice on how that works. I can give you the knowledge and you got to decide how to use it. And I think that that is 100%, a good way to protect yourself,
yeah,
but also, there's never going to be a situation that you find yourself in where people are like, well, I paid you X number of dollars and then you told me to go to such and such. And now you're both on the hook because, XYZ happened. And now that's smart.
yeah.
I like it.
And and so they will immediately feel abandoned, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to help me, you're abandoning us. And so what I don't send anybody anywhere, but I tell them, get 3 to 5 quotes. Never trust the
Mm-hmm.
first guy. They could be the best, but never trust them. Get all 5 or 3 quotes. And then when you get the quotes, you've got my report. Tell them to base their quotes off of my report. Don't have them do any extra. Tell them just listen to the engineer, even though every one of them think they're smarter. Um,
Yeah.
and then call me. I will gladly tell you how I feel about someone you went and found. I will gladly tell you if their uh, quote is garbage or if it's fair or if it's a really good
Mm-hmm.
price. I will gladly do that and help you out. I'm just not going to direct you where to go. And that
Yeah.
restores that removes that feeling of abandonment, and it reinforces, my separation from bias.
Yeah. I think, again, that's that illustrates another reason why, like, you are a perfect guest to have on. Is we're built around community, built around having a strong sense of, like, I want to do what's best for you. I'm not just doing this for me. I'm not just doing this for my benefit. I'm doing this because it's what's right.
Yeah.
And it's what's fair. It's what everybody should have access to. They just don't. I'm filling that space. And, again, like I said, I can't stress enough how much here we talk to, like you heard the intro, we talk to everybody from like sex educators
Yeah.
to artists and filmmakers, like we run the gamut. And what that means is we have so many different walks of life that all share the same perspective of like, do good to others. If you were in that situation, how would you want somebody to handle the situation for you?
Even
And if you're not,
even more powerful, how would you want someone to treat your mom?
yeah, I love that. Exactly. So I'm curious, you started a business, you had to jump through hoops and hurdles and things like that. What was one of the what was one of the hurdles that you didn't expect in starting a business that maybe wasn't like a big hurdle, or like you expected it to be hard but somehow turned into a hurdle, or just you just didn't see it coming, and it kind of just like, snuck up and grabbed you.
Um, so inspections, so like I told you originally, I based it off of what what the other civil engineer that I worked for and trained under, based my model off of their business, which is 100% inspections. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they, they do like 40 inspections a week. Maybe even more than that. They are very busy. Very, very big name. They've been doing it for 35, 40 years. Um, the While I was starting to grow, I wasn't getting very many inspections. I don't have my name out. 1 to 2 a week. I can't do much with that, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
what started happening is people were looking for niche things. One example was is there's a mobile home park that built some mobile homes, and they found out that it was in a floodplain, and the state was requiring that they get it evaluated to determine if they can stay or if they can get them out. The state had shut them down, kept them from occupying, so it was just sitting there. And they were looking for someone to do a FEMA model and evaluate the floodplain elevation, and adding the houses where they are, and see if the home is gonna be flooded or if it's gonna meet the requirements. Never done that, but the guys, the installer of the mobile home, he works all over the state of Missouri and Kansas and Iowa. Uh, Been doing it 20, 30 years. He just cannot find an engineer willing to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
he said to me, "Will you do it?" I told him, "I've never done it. I don't know what all's involved, but I know where the instructions are. If
Mm-hmm.
you're willing to be patient with me, we'll work through this and we'll figure it out. And I'll help you out." And he said, "Let's do it." And
Yeah.
so I fumbled through it. I figured the process out and everything, and before you know it, I figured it out. And then he had four more right off the bat, just knocked through four more
Yeah.
homes. He actually just reached out and sent me another one. This time they did it before they built the house, so they're not in trouble. But planning ahead is always a little bit better. But they it ended up being more business. But I realized, um, if I'm not getting inspections, why wouldn't I be doing something else? And
Yeah.
so that was the first thing, and I said, all right. So I added that to my repertoire. I added it to my website, and then someone called me and they said, "Hey, I want to build a pole barn, and enclose part of it, and I'm going to live in it. Can you do those plans for me? And so I said, I've never done it, but if you'll work with me, I'll make it
Yeah.
happen for you. And so what I learned is if you want the business to grow, you've got to follow the money, not hold too closely to your idea of what your business is going to look like. Um,
Yeah.
I didn't lose my identity of what I wanted. I'm still doing inspections,
Yeah.
still doing a ton of that. That started growing. That, you know, that's my passion. I love meeting people, having conversations, and getting to help people feel comfortable with the situation. They may not be happy, but they're comfortable with the understanding of what's going on, and they can make an informed decision. And I love that. So I'll never get away from that. But now I'm doing a lot of design work. I'm doing remodels, beam calculations, new construction,
Hmm.
design, pretty much anything that I need. I'm doing residential stuff. Um,
Yeah. So one of the things that like I doubt that you had an opportunity to listen to any of the episodes, especially the earlier ones. But one of the things we coined earlier on, especially when it comes to your business or your creative focus or whatever that thing is, that outlet, is to pivot.
yeah,
I was talking to my good friend C Monstrosity, CMO, and they said they played WIFTA. So we talked about Derby and we talked about like the role of a pivot and how like you got to be able to just like switch and do the thing that's necessary in the moment, because 10 seconds before it wasn't
yeah,
necessary and 10 seconds after it might not be necessary anymore, but you got to do it while that's what's happening. So we just, kind of coined that phrase, is you got to just be willing to pivot. And I think you can appreciate that term
yeah,
as the term that it is. But also something that you said, and this is something that I learned super early on, and it doesn't just go for men or boys, but it was definitely a thing that my dad taught me when I was younger. And I think that, I hope that I imparted on my kids, and I would imagine that you also imparted on yours. But thinking about how you approach that situation, and you're like, I've never done this before, but if you're willing to work with me, you will get 10 times further admitting the things that you don't know. And then if you tried to pretend you knew what you were doing and just faked it till you made
yeah,
it, because when you fuck up, you don't have that grace. You just fucked up and maybe wasted somebody's money and time. When you tell them off the bat, hey, I don't know, but I think I can find the answer, or I might be able to find somebody that can point me at least in the right direction and get you helped out, if you're willing to hang out for a second, or if you're willing to do. And now you give them the choice and you give them a little bit of power in the situation, and your honesty goes a lot further than your candor
yeah.
would have. And I think that, I'm glad that you explained that story the way that you did, because I saw those two things, and those are both very good lessons to learn early on, and advice to take from this episode. If you don't take any other advice from this episode, admitting when you don't know
Yeah.
something, and the ability to pivot, and maybe it's not exactly what you thought, but right now it's better than
But
nothing,
it's
and
my
it's just another tool in my
yeah, and
toolbox.
it's my business identity, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
had this other person's business identity in my mind. I'm not that other person. This is that, my business isn't their business. And
Mm-hmm.
so I am where my passions follow, and I am, following and doing things my way, and it's going to look different. Every person, what unique fingerprints, right? Uh, our businesses are fingerprints of who we are. Um,
I like that.
so it's going to be unique. And it's not just as an owner or as a business is it great to know or to admit that you're wrong. It pays dividends when you're even in corporate world and stuff. While I was working for HNTB, uh, I was designing water lines, and my supervisor on and project manager, she would leave me to my own devices and just give me so much reign and freedom and so much rope to just go. And she was never on top of me. She would say, I need this by this time. She wouldn't tell me how to do it. She wouldn't tell me all the little steps in between it. She just said, this is where I need to be. And we were kind of talking about it at one of my career annual career review meetings. And she's like, the reason I've always done that is because I know that you will stop and ask me what to do when you aren't sure, instead of making it up and being
Yeah.
afraid to ask or admit that you don't know.
Uh, that's a perfect segue into this, and I love that. That's the way that the way that you are, because that's the way I kind of know you to be. So like I appreciate that, but I don't know what this is, and I'm super curious. Navy nuclear power and engineering. What is that? It sounds badass to me.
Yeah.
What is that?
So, Navy nuclear power. So right now we have aircraft carriers and submarines that are powered by nuclear reactors. The Navy used to have cruisers also, but they've phased those out. And so there's one nuclear reactor on every submarine, and there are two on every aircraft carrier. There used to be eight. They would be
Oh
smaller.
wow.
Yeah, it was the Enterprise. The USS Enterprise had eight reactors. They were just smaller. So what they said is, you know what? Let's go to two bigger ones and call it a day. So a nuclear reactor is essentially just a hot rock, and it's heated by nuclear reactions. And we have water that flows across that rock, and it gets heated up. We keep it super pressurized at a very, very high pressure, so that it stays in liquid form, right? Because if we're
Yeah.
talking atmosphere, it'll boil at 212 degrees. Uh, but we want it to stay liquid. And so that's a closed loop system. It's running very hot, very high pressure. Then we have a steam generator that has cold water coming through in a separate system, and they go across the heat exchanger, uh, basically like your furnace in your house,
Hmm.
right? Where we have coolant and stuff running through that as air passes over. We're doing the same basic concept with a separate system. It turns that into steam, and then we use that steam to propel the ship and to power our generators. I was an electrician, so I was responsible for anything that basically had wires going to it. We have no conventional electricians on submarines, so nuclear electricians had to do all electrical work. We owned about 80% of the equipment on the boat. We were the
Oh
largest
wow.
division, and on any given day, I could go from uh, operating a breaker that specifically um, uh, turns on or off, or repairing a breaker, something for safety of reactor safety that could create a meltdown if I do it wrong, to cleaning lint from the dryer.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a wild day, but also like a rewarding day when everything flows smoothly and
Yeah.
you don't have those things. Another thing I asked you to give me just a little bit about you, and I wasn't expecting such a thorough and
Talk to
detailed
text lets you
write
be
up.
more thorough, I'll tell you.
Yeah. So um, you said something in there that caught me, and I heard you talk about it a couple of times, but I didn't know that it was something that had like plagued you for a while. And you have a section titled "Childhood Illness and Recovery." So,
Yeah.
just a little real quick, what happened?
So
What was that?
so when I was 3, I got spinal meningitis. And it about took me out. Um, I was in the hospital for over a week with a fever of 105. My mom would say, "You were in the hospital for a week with a fever of 105.9." I don't know if it was exactly that the
Mm.
whole time, but uh, it,
Yeah.
that's the number she's told me my whole
I'm
life.
sure it seemed like it to her.
Um, but yeah, I was there for a week. Nothing the doctors gave me or did, nothing they did could break the fever. So it was just staying up. Um, and finally, after about a week, before the week ended, my mom, stayed at the hospital the whole time. Doctors, after 3 or 4 days, came to her and they said, "Listen, we can't do anything. This this really is in, someone else's hands, and it is up to your son and his will to fight." Um, as to whether or not he makes it through this. Um, and then a couple days later on Mother's Day, my fever broke. Um, and I returned to normal almost instantly. Um, from that, though, I was only 3, so it wasn't like I was articulate to this level, but I had to relearn to talk and walk. All of my motor skills had to be redone. My hearing, I had lost 100% hearing in my right ear and 75% hearing in my left.
Wow.
Um, my vision was blurry. It just, it hit a reset. Um,
Hmm.
and so I learned I got a lot of stuff back pretty quickly. Um, my dad will say I learned to talk quickly. Uh, but got water or got walking and all that stuff. My hand-eye coordination got a lot of that back pretty quickly. It took a couple years for me to get most of my hearing back, and I had a really bad speech impediment until fifth grade. I couldn't say R, so it was always aw, um,
Mm.
and sawi, and all of that stuff. It took till fifth grade to finally gain my hearing back enough that I could hear the R sound. Um, to prevent from getting picked on too much, I used to tell everyone I was from Australia,
I love that.
and so
That's
I
fun.
just had a foreign accent, which is cool. A speech impediment is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Um, you know what I do for a living. I work in special education, so I see kids that have, situations like that and, worse. And, it's always super, I don't want to say like awe inspiring, but like, you know, going through something like that and and coming out the other side and trying to be a good human is like divine.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like there's no reason why after that anything should be taken for granted. And hearing a story like that, there's no reason why you should go forward and take anything for granted. And I think that, I'm glad you're here. Number one, I'm glad you figured it out. And you decided Mother's Day, like that somehow doesn't surprise me that you would choose to, fight until Mother's Day. But yeah. So I usually do at the end of an episode, I do a this or that. I'm going to kind of change it up. I didn't do this or that, but I do have two kind of heavy questions.
okay.
And I wanted to end on that particular story because uh, the first question is go back in time and tell yourself one truth that you learned about yourself now, or go back and save yourself from one thing. Which would you choose?
So this is uh, this is really, it kind of goes against, and I'm going to answer your question, but it goes against kind of my mantra for life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
no regrets, right?
Yeah.
Um, if I had something in, cocked and rocking, ready to go with that, then that means that there's something about my life that I regret. Um,
Yeah.
I have two amazing kids. I have an insanely beautiful wife. I play sports with incredible people. I've got my own business. I'm exploring going beyond that. We didn't even talk about, the fact that I bought some property and my wife and I are building a wedding venue, and gonna explore a whole new venture there. But um, I'm not, I'm happy. I'm satisfied with life. I'm
Yeah.
not seeking happiness. I'm satisfied. I'm seeking peace, and I've got so much peace in my life that to want to do something means that there's something that I feel is wrong. Um, and so that's my core nature not to think that way. Um,
That's an answer, brother. That's all I'm saying. Like that's an answer. And that question is written and given specifically to pull answers like that out of you. So to me, that's an answer. And then I got one more. All right, this one is similar, but I think that in the context of what we've been talking about, kind of has a different flavor than that. And what would you tell yourself at the start with the knowledge that you have now?
at the start of my business or at the start of life?
Mm-hmm. At the start of your
At the
business.
start of my business, I would I would tell myself, uh, go to sleep. It's gonna work
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know, it
You hear that out there, everybody? Go to
Go to
sleep. It's
sleep.
gonna
It's
work
gonna
out.
work out. Um, people don't expect you, good people. The majority of your clients are good people. No matter what our business is, there's always going to be bad people. They don't expect you to respond at midnight. As an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
no one expects an engineer to respond at midnight. No one expects me to design a set of plans in a week. Um, the industry standard is 2 months, right? So no one expects that, but I felt obligated to get it done. So I was working till midnight. I was, getting up at 5 a.m. to do it, and I was worried that if I didn't get things out so quick and everything that I just pounded and pounded and pounded and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I had to be reminded that it's more than just providing finances. It's uh, my family needs more from me. And
Yeah.
so I need to, go to sleep.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
granted, that's not quality time with family, but it just means shut it down,
yeah.
shut the business down at a certain time. Be more than just an engineer. Be coach medium.
Yeah, I like it. So ordinarily, this is the part in the podcast where people are like, "So if people wanted to find you, where would you?" And all that stuff is going to be linked in the show notes, so I don't want to waste time with doing
Yeah,
it. And I was just on a podcast where like that's what they said, and I was like, that makes total
that's
sense.
what she said.
So instead, I had a last question for you. You said you bought some property and you have a plan. What's the plan? See, I was getting there, buddy. I was getting there.
Yeah, you pulled that one out on me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
here in right up the street from our house, we I I think it was God intervening on this property. There's so many things that there should be no reason that we have this property, but so many things just lined up. Um, there was construction on our normal way home from the skating rink. So we
Mhm.
took a detour on a small road we've never been on. And when we made that detour, there was a truck on fire on the road. And so we called the fire department and everything, hang out until they put it out. And then the next day, we drive by and just to see it because I wanted to see what it looked like. And then the property that was next to it was stunning. We looked at it and instantly we saw us 80 years old sitting on the porch, rocking, overlooking this property. It's absolutely beautiful. We spent 6 months doing praying and just looking at it. And then I used my engineering prowess to find out who owns the property, find out where that person actually lives, only to realize that person is right up the street from us, and we drive by their house every time we go to that. So we started stalking them and everything. And
Yeah.
finally, after like 6 months, we finally worked up the courage to go and talk to him. And he was outside cleaning his yard, hanging out, and I pulled up, and Gemma was 5 minutes behind me, coming from somewhere else, and just started chatting with him and asked him about the property, and asked him if he ever thought about selling it. And he just kind of laughed and he said, "Well, my wife and we're starting to talk to a realtor and thinking about putting it on the market here in about a couple weeks." And so
There you
just
go.
the timing of that was perfect. The guy is one of the most amazing humans that you'll ever meet. But it all laid up. It's a beautiful property. It's 33 acres. It's in KCMO proper, so it's right near everything. Uh, and it overlooks the Blue Valley basin for the Blue Valley River and everything. And when you stand where we want to put a wedding altar, you see nothing but trees, and
Yeah.
we're literally 2 minutes from civilization, but you can't see any of it. And you've got 12 to 14 miles of view that you can overlook it. So it's actually a landfill that was closed down in the 80s, and it's beautiful property now. We can't build a lot on the landfill, but up at the top we want to put like a 200 person venue, and
Hmm.
down in the bottom corner we're going to put some little Airbnbs so that you can have the bridal party stay and everything, have a place to get super hammered and not have to drive away for the bridal
Yeah.
party,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And yeah, right now we're working on getting it rezoned. I'm getting survey. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. The main holdup for me really is just funding. Um, I
Yeah.
can't I can't get a loan big enough to really cover it all. So at the moment, I'm paying piece by piece and just doing it a little step at a time. Once I get to a certain point, I'm going to really try and get a stronger pitch and see if I can get a loan or see if I can get some kind of
Yeah.
partnership. The goal is for me to have 100% in perpetuity, but in the meantime, you know, I'm not opposed to some kind of investor uh,
Yeah.
where we both make some money off of it, because it will
Yeah.
make money.
Not to piggyback off of your dream, and there's no way that you could have known this, none whatsoever. But my longtime dream has been to own a chunk of property. It's got to have a hill and a grassy area separated by some woods and in a clearing. And I want to do a pond with some little cabins and a campsite kind of bed and breakfast area so you can camp and then come and do a bread and breakfast, or you can stay at the little cabins by the lake and then do a bed and breakfast kind of deal. So like you're around civilization, but then I want hiking trails. And like I said, I want that wooded area that separates it so you can drive your 4x4, whatever it is. Like I have a giant tent on top of my car. So
I've
like,
seen it.
obviously, yeah. So
It's
like,
cool.
I'm wearing my ex Overland hat right now, but it's like, you got to drive through some woods, maybe some light trails that we cut to get to the top of a hill and clearing, so you get the best views, but you got to work to get there.
Yeah,
And hiking trails cut through so you can camp and backpack your way up there. But I don't want it to be so far away from civilization that it's like a 4-day
yeah,
trip, or like you got to carve out more than a weekend to do it, because at the end of the day, like, you know time is precious. And it's hard to get those, family trips anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you have a ton of money or a ton of time.
Yeah.
And usually if you got one, you don't have the
Exactly.
other. So
Exactly. Yep. And the location of this, it's on the Rock Island Trail. So pictures, it's a beautiful spot where the Rock Island Trail cuts in between the properties. I own both sides of the Rock Island Trail from this purchase. And so it creates like this cave and then the trees over it, and it gives this beautiful shaded thing along the trail. There's a bridge, a 1-lane bridge that you can take some pictures under and stuff. And there's just so many opportunities for stuff like that. But we are currently looking and starting to try and book people for more of a outdoor primitive wedding location. Where people can bring tents and stuff. We're working on getting some generators so they can at least have electrical power from electric generators, so they're silent instead of gas powered generators. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We are going to be having, I think we've talked about it in Quad Squad. We're going to be having the league end of year party there and make it like a camping thing. For people to camp, stay there, and party in the tent to celebrate the end of the year. So that's kind of we'll be letting a lot of people come out for that. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here. I wish you nothing but the best for your business and continuing to grow. For like, it's just. Like I said, to have seen it from its infancy to now, and got to give the wife another shout out for knocking you in the head and being like, "What are you gonna do, babe?
Yeah.
Like get going." So shout out to your missus for that. Is there any last bit of advice you want to give to the people listening who might be thinking about starting a business or might be in that same somebody needs to knock them in the head?
General Patton once said, a good plan, aggressively executed today, will always be better than a perfect plan executed on tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we don't need to have all our ducks in a row. We're never going to be ready for anything in life. Sometimes 80% is good enough. You don't need it perfect. If you're waiting for perfection, you'll never take a step forward.
I love that. And on that note, thanks for being here. Bye.
See you, man. Bye. Thanks for having me.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.